The screen is dark, the only thing you can see is a digital log. It shows 3 entries, one after another. Each entry is a phone number. Each has a timestamp, just minutes apart. Beside each one, the status reads the same. No answer. A voice, calm and steady, breaks the silence. She called 3 times. No answer. This is where our story begins tonight. It starts not with the sound of a siren or the rush of help arriving, but with the profound and terrifying silence that follows a call for help that goes unheard. For many of us, dialing 911 is an act of faith. We trust that on the other end of the line, someone will be there, ready to dispatch the help we so desperately need in our darkest moments. This trust is the bedrock of our emergency response system. It's a promise that no matter where you are, or what time of night it is, you are not alone. But what happens when that promise is broken? What happens when the system we rely on fails to respond? The stories we will explore are not just about statistics or logistical errors. They are about the human experience of being trapped in a moment of crisis, reaching out for a lifeline, and finding nothing there. This is a journey into the heart of nighttime isolation, a time when vulnerability is at its peak and the world outside seems to sleep, unaware of the silent battles being fought behind closed doors. We are going to look at what occurs in the shadows of our communities, in the quiet hours between dusk and dawn. These are the moments when a medical emergency can take hold, a sudden threat of violence can take hold, a paralyzing fear can take hold. For the people in these situations, the silence on the other end of the phone is more than just a technical glitch. It is a confirmation of their worst fears, that they are completely and utterly on their own. The feeling of abandonment can be as devastating as the emergency itself, leaving a lasting scar on those who experience it. It erodes confidence not just in our institutions, but in the very idea of a society that looks out for its own. Tonight's investigation is about understanding why these calls sometimes go unanswered. We will travel from remote country roads to bustling city high-rises. Is it a lack of resources? Is it a flaw in the bureaucratic process? Is it a problem with technology? Or is it a deeper issue of trust and communication? The empty call log on the screen represents a void. It is a void where a voice should have been, where help should have been dispatched, and where a life could have been changed. We will fill that void with answers, seeking to understand the real stakes when the system fails. In this investigation, we are taking a specific approach. We call it Faces of Delay. This isn't about pointing fingers at faceless systems or anonymous dispatchers. It's about putting a human face to every part of the story. We will meet the people who made the calls and hear their experiences in their own words. We will also meet the people who are part of the system: dispatchers, first responders, policymakers. We'll try to understand the immense pressures they navigate every shift. By focusing on faces, we aim to bridge the gap between a victim's desperate plea and the institutional response, or lack thereof. These individual stories reveal the true impact of a delayed or missed response. We will explore 4 distinct cases: the road, without a name, rural isolation, unclear jurisdictions, lack of available resources, a medical emergency turned into a prolonged, terrifying wait for a family, waiting at the high-rise. The problem isn't distance, it's bureaucracy. Calls from a large apartment building, caught in a web of dispatch triage protocols, policy thresholds. She hung up. The role of fear, a lack of trust, why someone might call and then hang up. The missed alarm, a pure system error, technical glitch, data entry mistake, a catastrophic failure. Together, these are the faces of delay. Their experiences demand our attention and action. Table of contents for Part 2. Act 1. Rural isolation, the road without a name. Section 1. A faint light on a dark road. Section 2. The first call, a voice in the void. Section 3. The second call, jurisdictional limbo. Section 4. A neighbor's headlights. Our first story takes us deep into the American heartland, to a place where the paved roads give way to gravel, and then, finally, to dirt. This is a landscape of sprawling fields, dense woods where houses are separated not by fences, but by miles of quiet, open space. The Miller family lived here, in a small farmhouse at the end of a long, winding track the locals called the Old Logging Path. It didn't have a formal name, it certainly didn't appear on most digital maps. For them, this isolation was a choice, a trade-off for peace, a connection to nature. But one cold October night, that peace was shattered. The distance they cherished became their greatest enemy. The evening began like any other. Sarah Miller was putting her 2 young children to bed. Her husband, David, was out in the barn, finishing up his chores. The air was crisp, the sky a blanket of stars, unobscured by city lights. It was the kind of idyllic scene that draws people to rural life. But inside the farmhouse, a crisis was quietly unfolding. David suddenly collapsed onto the barn's dusty floor. He was experiencing a massive heart attack. Unaware, Sarah continued with the bedtime routine, the low hum of the refrigerator, the only sound breaking the silence. When David didn't return after an hour, a knot of worry began to form in Sarah's stomach. She stepped onto the porch, calling his name into the vast, dark expanse. The only reply was the rustling of leaves in the autumn wind. Pulling on a jacket over her pajamas, she grabbed a flashlight. The beam cut a nervous, bouncing path through the darkness. The barn door was slightly ajar, a sliver of faint light spilling out. It was there, on the cold concrete, that she found him. He was unconscious, his breathing shallow and erratic. The profound isolation of their home became terrifyingly real. Panic set in, cold and sharp. Sarah knew she needed help, and she needed it immediately. The nearest neighbor was over 2 miles away, the closest hospital 45 minutes on a good day, on well-lit highways. Tonight, help would have to come to them. She snatched her phone from the kitchen counter, fingers trembling as she dialed the 3 numbers. She pressed the green call button, holding the phone to her ear, listening for the voice she believed would save her husband's life. The first call was made at 9:47 in the evening. Sarah's voice was strained, a mixture of panic and forced composure.
My husband. He's on the floor. I think he's having a heart attack. He's not breathing right.
The voice on the other end was calm, professional, and began asking the standard questions.
What is your address?
Sarah gave the address they used for mail, a post office box in the nearest town, and then tried to explain their physical location.
We're off Route 7, down the old logging path. It doesn't have a name. It's the only house down here about 3 miles in.
Ma'am, I'm not seeing that road on my map. Can you give me a cross street or a landmark?
There are no cross streets. It's just woods. Tell them to look for the big oak tree with the broken limb at the turnoff from Route 7. Our mailbox is there. It's the only one.
The dispatcher assured her they would do their best, and that help was on the way. Sarah hung up, clinging to that promise. She ran back to the barn, trying to keep David stable. 10 minutes passed, then 15. The only sounds were the wind outside and David's labored breaths. Sarah looked out the barn door into the oppressive darkness. There was nothing. Just the same empty, silent blackness as before. At 10:05 in the evening, 18 minutes after her first desperate plea for help, Sarah made her second call. The panic was raw and audible in her voice.
Where are they? I called almost 20 minutes ago. My husband is dying.
She was met with a different dispatcher this time. The name of the road, the lack of an address, the landmark of the broken tree.
Ma'am, we have a unit trying to find your location, but the area is outside their primary jurisdiction. We are trying to coordinate with the next county over.
The word jurisdiction was a bureaucratic dagger, a confirmation that her emergency was tangled in red tape. Section 3. The second call. Jurisdictional limbo. The term jurisdictional limbo sounds like a bureaucratic abstraction, but for Sarah Miller, it was a life-or-death reality. Her home sat precariously on the edge of 2 different counties. The 911 call, routed by the nearest cell tower, had gone to the dispatch center for Somerset County. However, their physical location, deep down that unnamed road, was technically just across the line in Pine Ridge County. Somerset County's ambulance had been dispatched, but upon realizing the address was outside their designated response area, the driver had stopped, awaiting confirmation before proceeding. Protocol dictated they could not officially operate in another county without a formal request from that county's emergency services. This is a common problem in rural America. Invisible lines drawn on a map create logistical walls that can be insurmountable in a crisis. While the Somerset ambulance waited for clearance, the dispatcher who took Sarah's second call was trying to contact the Pine Ridge County Dispatch. But Pine Ridge was a smaller, more sparsely populated county, with an even more limited set of resources. Their nighttime operations were run by a skeleton crew, For several critical minutes, the call from the Somerset dispatch simply went to a busy line. Help was, in effect, stuck in a phone queue, while David Miller's life hung in the balance on the barn floor. Sarah, disconnected from this invisible bureaucratic struggle, felt only the crushing weight of abandonment. She was now on the phone for the second time, pleading with a stranger who seemed more concerned with procedure than with the man dying in front of her.
I don't care what county it is, she screamed into the phone, tears streaming down her face. Just send someone, please.
The dispatcher tried to explain the situation, but the words were meaningless noise. All Sarah understood was that no one was coming. No sirens were cutting through the night. The system she had placed her faith in was failing in real time. The second call ended without any clear resolution. The dispatcher promised they were working on it, a phrase that offered zero comfort. It was now 10:15 p.m. Nearly half an hour had passed since she found David. She performed CPR as best she could, her movements frantic and clumsy, fueled by adrenaline and despair. She would push on his chest, then run to the door of the barn to scan the horizon, then run back. Each time she looked out, the darkness looked back, indifferent and absolute. The hope she had felt earlier was completely gone, replaced by a grim certainty. If David was going to be saved, it would not be by the system she had called. Section 4. A neighbor's headlights. At 10:22 p.m., Sarah made her third and final call to 911. This time, she didn't wait for a response. She yelled their location, yelled that her husband was no longer breathing, and hung up. She had lost all faith in the disembodied voices on the phone. Her next call was to her nearest neighbor, George, an old farmer who lived 2 miles down the main road. She knew it was a long shot. He was in his 70s and likely asleep. But her options had run out. Her hands shook so violently she could barely dial his number. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th ring, a groggy voice answered.
George? It's Sarah, it's David, he's collapsed, I need help.
There was no hesitation in George's voice, no questions about jurisdiction or landmarks, just a simple, I'm on my way. While the official emergency response was paralyzed by protocol, the informal network of community, the unwritten code of neighbors helping neighbors, kicked into gear. George threw on his boots, grabbed his keys, jumped into his old pickup truck. He knew the old logging path better than anyone. He didn't need a GPS or a dispatcher to guide him. He just needed to know that a neighbor was in trouble. His truck's powerful headlights were the first sign of hope Sarah had seen all night. 5 minutes after her call, George's truck rumbled down the path and skidded to a halt in front of the barn. He was not a paramedic, but he was a second person. He was a calm presence in the storm of Sarah's panic. Together, they were able to move David from the cold barn floor into the back of George's truck. They made a makeshift bed out of blankets. Sarah climbed in beside her husband, continuing chest compressions. George navigated the bumpy road back to the highway. He drove with a controlled urgency. As they finally reached the paved surface of Route 7, they saw them. Flashing red lights. Flashing blue lights. It was the unit from Somerset County. After more than 40 minutes of bureaucratic wrangling, the 2 counties had finally coordinated. The Pine Ridge Volunteer Fire Department had radioed the Somerset crew, giving them permission to proceed. The ambulance had been parked less than a mile from the turnoff waiting. They met in the middle of the road, a transfer of care happening under the cold glow of emergency lights. David was finally in the hands of professionals, but the delay had been catastrophic. The first responders knew, and Sarah knew, that the 45-minute gap may have already sealed his fate.